Welcome to the Candidate Disposition Assessment Training module. This video will assist you in evaluating the dispositional characteristics of teacher candidates at Fitchburg State University. In this module, we will do a deep dive into the dispositional expectations of teacher candidates. The faculty in the School of Education believe that teacher candidates not only need to have deep subject matter knowledge and excellent skills in assessment and instruction, but they need to demonstrate the professional skills, values, attitudes, and behaviors that facilitate student learning, build respectful and collaborative relationships with school personnel and parents, promote an equitable and productive environment for students, and convey a positive image of the teaching profession. In this module, you will learn what a candidate disposition is as defined by the School of Education at Fitchburg State University, the implications of the candidate disposition assessment, and how to evaluate dispositional characteristics of our teacher candidates, why we assess candidate dispositions, and how we use the data to inform our programs, and the consequences of not meeting the Fitchburg State University dispositional expectations. At Fitchburg State University, we define candidate dispositions as professional skills, attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors demonstrated both through verbal and nonverbal means as candidates interact with students, teachers, administrators, school personnel, family, colleagues, and members of the community. We also believe that effective teacher candidates demonstrate positive behaviors that support student learning and develop and creatively look for ways to help all students access the core curriculum and learn the necessary skills for academic, social, and emotional success. Because we strongly believe in the importance of positive candidate dispositions, we frequently evaluate our teacher candidates using a candidate disposition assessment. Why do we assess candidate dispositions and how are the data used? Professional dispositions are key to candidate success in the profession and in their impact on students. The candidate disposition assessment data are collected at entry and throughout the program, which is after every field experience, to monitor candidate success while they are in the program. The data from the assessments are reviewed by Fitchburg State Education faculty, and they are used to inform our curriculum, policies, and practices. The candidate disposition assessment is completed by Fitchburg State faculty, program supervisors, supervising practitioners, and host teachers. This assessment is integral in preparing and evaluating our candidates for the important role of teaching and supporting students, interacting and collaborating with teachers and school personnel, and working with parents and members of the school community. The candidate disposition assessment rubric includes 10 dispositional criteria that are used to assess and monitor our candidates as they progress through the program. Let's take a look at the elementary education plan of study. Teacher candidates' dispositions are assessed at multiple points during the 4-year plan. In the fall semester freshman year, candidates are first assessed in SPED 1001, Introduction to Special Education, by the course instructor. In the spring semester, they are assessed in EDUC 1006, Foundations of Inclusive Education, by the supervising practitioner during their pre-practicum field experience. Candidates are required to have 2 positive candidate disposition assessments to successfully pass a Stage 1 review where they are formally accepted into an education program. This review typically occurs in the sophomore year. Also in the sophomore year, candidates are assessed by their supervising practitioners in the pre-practicum field experience in EDUC 2630, Literacy in the Pre-K Classroom, and EDUC 2640, Language Arts Theory to Practice, Pre-K to 8. During the junior year, candidates participate in a 1 full day a week, approximately 90 hours, pre-practicum Field 1 and Field 2 experience. These are additional points where dispositions are assessed by host teachers. Finally, in the senior year, candidates, supervising practitioners, also complete a candidate disposition assessment during our 2 full day a week integrated partial practicum or IPP. Before candidates are allowed to enroll in the practicum, they must pass a Stage 2 review. The Stage 2 review requires candidates to have positive scores on all candidate disposition assessments. If they pass the Stage 2 review, then they are allowed to enroll in the practicum where candidates are in the field every day. These are the final administrations of the candidate disposition assessments. It is important to point out that although there are designated points throughout the plans of study, faculty, supervisors, and/or supervising practitioners can complete a candidate disposition assessment at any time. When candidates are not meeting standards at any point in the program, an intervention process is initiated using an alert form. The alert forms are used when there is a concern regarding dispositional or professional attributes. The alert will prompt a meeting, include the candidate, advisor, faculty practitioner, and the chair or coordinator of the program to discuss the issue and/or to build a plan of action. An action plan is developed to support and guide the candidate to be successful in their courses or in a field experience. In the following slides, I will explain the expectations that we have of our Fitchburg State education candidates. Each of the 10 expectations are the indicators on the candidate disposition assessment rubric. You can download a copy of the Candidate Disposition Assessment, which is located in the module. As you can see, the Candidate Disposition Assessment is a rubric consisting of 10 dispositional characteristics or indicators. The indicators are divided under 5 headings, 4 of which align with Fitchburg State's School of Education's conceptual framework components. The 5 headings are: the candidates are knowledgeable, skillful, ethical, caring, and behaves in a professional manner. Each indicator has 4 performance levels: unsatisfactory, 1 unsatisfactory, 2 needs improvement, 3 proficient, 4 exemplary, and an NO, which is not observed. This assessment has been adapted in part from CAPE's University Dispositional Rubric, Charlotte Danielson's Framework for Teaching, Kim Marshall's Teacher Education Rubrics, Robert Marzano's Teacher Evaluation Model, and the Massachusetts Model System for Teacher Education. Teacher candidates are instructed to complete the identifying information at the top of the form. When completing the form, please read each indicator and performance level carefully and note that candidates need to meet all elements in the proficient category to receive a proficient rating for an indicator. Should a candidate exhibit any of the actions and/or behaviors related to the needs improvement category or the unsatisfactory category, the candidate will receive the lower rating. The exemplary category is reserved for candidates who meet all the criteria in the proficient level and who model the indicator elements for others. In the following slides, I will review each of the indicators in the performance levels, as well as give additional guidance to assist you with scoring teacher candidates' dispositions. At Fitchburg State University, we expect our candidates to communicate effectively in speech and in writing. Candidates must understand their audience and adapt their communication appropriately, whether they are speaking or writing to teachers, administrators, students, or parents. We expect our candidates to speak and write clearly with correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar. We believe our candidates must model and demonstrate correct English conventions in emails, on whiteboards, in notes to parents, and in instructional materials for students. Therefore, the first indicator on the candidate disposition assessment is communicates effectively in speech and in writing. Now let's look at the difference in the language on the rubric. To be proficient, the candidate's oral communication is well articulated and clear with appropriate tone. Written communication, including email, is well organized and ideas are presented clearly. And oral and written communication follow standard English conventions. The exemplary category includes the criteria in the proficient category, but adds that their communication skills are appropriate to the audience and level of English proficiency, open and honest, and invite and encourage participation of others. Always presents material clearly and explicitly with well-chosen examples and vivid and appropriate language, demonstrates active listening skills. Now let's look at scores of 2 needs improvement and 1 unsatisfactory. The performance criteria include Parallel language. For example, a score of 3 proficient on the previous slide indicated that the candidate was meeting the criteria. A score of 2 indicates that the candidate meets the criteria on occasion, and reads, on occasion, oral communication needs to be articulated more accurately, more clearly, or in a more appropriate tone. On occasion, written communication, including email, needs to be organized better with ideas more clearly presented. On occasion, oral and written communication lack standard English conventions. A score of 1 on satisfactory indicates that the candidate often needs to and often lacks. The criteria for a score of 1 reads, oral communication often needs to be articulated more accurately, more clearly, or in a more appropriate tone. Written communication, including email, often needs to be better organized, and ideas often need to be more clearly presented. Oral and written communication often lack standard English conventions. When scoring candidates on communication skills, consider the level of the candidate's oral and written communication as well as their use of standard English conventions. The second indicator assesses the candidate's preparedness. We expect our candidates will demonstrate preparedness for coursework and in-field experiences, understand when more information is needed, and know how to find it. When our candidates enter the classroom, we expect them to be fully prepared and ready to teach for all lesson plans, activities, materials, etc., completed on time and demonstrating substantial time and planning allocated. We also expect that they will look for and find additional information, materials, resources, etc., that support their lesson and positively impact student learning. Finally, we expect that candidates will prepare well thought out lessons and anticipate student misunderstandings and miscommunications. Let's take a look at the 4 performance levels. For a candidate to earn a score of 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria. They must be well prepared for all class, field experience assignments and activities, and they must obtain information as needed through research and questioning. To score 4 and meet the exemplary criteria, they must first meet all the proficient criteria and go well beyond required preparation for class and/or field work. They must demonstrate evidence of extensive planning with probing questions, written notes, learning materials, etc., and their preparation must positively impact learning, teacher effectiveness, and peer-student learning. Now let's look at a score of 1 and 2. The performance indicators and needs improvement and unsatisfactory include parallel language. For example, a score of 3 proficient in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the criteria. A score of 2 needs improvement includes the phrases on occasion and needs to. The performance criteria for 2 is on occasion, needs to better prepare for class, field experience assignments and activities, and needs to obtain information to be prepared. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the language often needs to, often lacks, and unaware. Often needs to better prepare for class, field experience assignments and activities, often lacks information needed to be prepared, and/or is unaware of how to find information needed. When scoring candidates on preparedness, consider the level he or she is prepared for assignments and activities and his or her performance in obtaining the information needed to be prepared. Here is an example of a poor oral and written communication and preparedness for teaching. Although this is a university professor teaching a class on marketing, it is a good example of what this can look like.
Well, hi everybody here in Cumberland. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do today. I'm not exactly... Okay, I think we'll just talk about this thing with, like, I don't know, maybe market segmentation, where, like last time we were talking about about like demographics. Do you remember that when we were talking about demographics? I can't really remember exactly what we were saying last time, but we were saying something about people and the different characteristics of people and the different population, and I don't know, we're going to have to go over this really quickly. We've got market segmentation, geographic, demographic, psychographic, behavior, all those different kinds of things. Probably remember that from last time, not really sure, but let me just show you a website that talks to you a little bit about well, you'll see what I mean. It shows you a really good demographic example, and it's a Nokia product. I didn't have time to come in here and get it together ahead of time, but I'm going to just search it, just do a quick Google search. It'll be fine. I'm going to do a quick Google search to show you something here. So
when completing the candidate disposition assessment, the candidate is assessed on their behavior for the whole time in the field and not on one observation. This short clip is an example of a score of a 3 for the first indicator on assessing communication. This is just an example and is based on a short segment of teaching. Oral communication is well articulated and clear with appropriate tone. Written communication is well organized and ideas are presented clearly. Oral and written communication follow standard English conventions. She did not score a 4 exemplary because there is no evidence in this short clip of active listening. Likewise, the short clip would be scored a 3 proficient because the teacher is well prepared for all class, field experience assignments, and activities, obtains information as needed through research and questioning. Without spending more time with the teacher, it is difficult to assess the impact on learning or teaching effectively in peer-student learning.
hi everybody. Want to make sure that my students up in Somerset and Bedford can see me and hear me okay? Technicians, is everything good? Ready to go? And welcome to you students here in Cumberland as well. Last time we were talking about understanding our target customers in marketing and how we can segment our market to understand our customers' wants and needs better. We have 4 different areas into which we segment markets so that we can understand our customer a little bit better. And we break them down into geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral subcategories to understand a little bit more about our customer. Now today we're going to be focusing on one of these 4 and even one of those more specifically. So if we could switch over to the PC, Ryan, we can talk a little bit more today about demographics specifically. And this is, what are the characteristics in the target market that help describe who your customer is specifically?
The third indicator assesses the candidate's interactions with faculty, supervising practitioners, peers, students, and parents. We expect our candidates to interact in a professional and respectful manner with all school personnel, students, and parents. We expect them to actively listen without judgment, show consideration for the thoughts and feelings of others, and respectfully self-advocate when necessary. We expect them to show compassion, empathy, and understanding, be thoughtful, slow to judge, and mannerly when managing conflicts in and out of the classroom, and to promote collaboration and seek solutions that encourage a safe and productive environment. Now let's take a look at the rubrics language for the proficient and exemplary categories. For a student to earn a 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria. They must interact in a polite and professional manner with others. In addition, they must communicate respectfully by considering multiple perspectives and respond appropriately to conflict or misunderstandings. To score a 4, they meet the exemplary criteria. Candidates first must meet all the proficient criteria and always collaborates with others to promote positive group interactions and productivity, listens and supports others to ensure a collaborative environment, analyzes interactions to make appropriate adjustments to ensure a supportive and nurturing environment. Now let's look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. Like the indicators 1 and 2, the performance indicators in needs improvement and unsatisfactory include parallel language. For example, a score of 3, proficient, in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the criteria. A score of 2, needs improvement, includes the phrases on occasion needs to and needs to. The performance criteria for a 2 is on occasion needs to interact with others in a more polite and professional manner, which considers multiple perspectives, needs to respond more appropriately to conflict or misunderstandings. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language: often needs to and lacks. Therefore, a score of 1 is often needs to interact with others in a more polite and professional manner, often needs to be more considerate of multiple perspectives, lacks appropriate response to conflicts or understanding. When scoring candidates on their interactions, consider the level he or she interacts with others and his or her performance on responding to conflict and misunderstandings. Here's an example of a teacher communicating respectfully with students by considering multiple perspectives and responding appropriately to conflict or misunderstandings.
What should you bring with you to your location? What materials do you need to have? Kyle.
You will need to have a pencil, a Post-it note, and the chart.
Okay, I will be giving you the Post-it notes. Don't forget about the text though. Okay, you'll need your text and a pencil, and you're right, Kyle, we will give you those Post-it notes so you have them. Question?
Trying to find, what are we doing again? I forgot the first step.
I appreciate you asking. You're going to be looking for text evidence within both Elisa's diary and the poem that shows how the characters feel and how they perceive the English language.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions before we begin? What should the voice level be? 1. A 1. Perfect.
At Fitchburg State, we expect our candidates to have a strong ability to work with others who are different from themselves and to be able to self-reflect on their own strengths and challenges. Candidates should seek suggestions and constructive criticism from their supervising practitioner or program supervisor. Candidates should engage in learning through self-reflection by asking others what he or she can do to improve. We believe that feedback is a compelling influence on learning. Therefore, candidates must demonstrate understanding of the feedback given by adjusting their practice and making changes to their teaching. Now let's take a look at the rubrics language for the 4th indicator on reflective practice. For a candidate to score 3, proficient, he or she must meet 3 criteria: recognizes personal strengths and challenges, responds appropriately to suggestions and constructive feedback from others, and uses it to adjust work, behavior, and/or practice. To score a 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the 4 exemplary criteria. The candidate is always receptive of critical examination of personal strengths and challenges and solicits feedback on teaching effectiveness, makes data-driven decisions, reflection results in changing work, teaching, behaviors, and/or interactions with others. Now let's take a look at needs improvement and the unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's reflective skills, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3, proficient, in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the 3 criteria. A score of 2, needs improvement, includes the phrases on occasion needs to and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is on occasion needs to interact with others in a more polite and professional manner, which considers multiple perspectives, needs to respond more appropriately to conflict or misunderstandings. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language: often needs to. The criteria for a score of 1 is often needs to recognize personal strengths and categories, often needs to respond more appropriately to suggestions and feedback from others, and often needs to adjust work, behavior, or practice. When scoring on self-reflection, consider the level he or she recognizes their personal strengths and challenges, responds to feedback, and adjusts their work, behavior, or practice. This vignette is an example that requires some intervention by the supervising practitioner. Tom, a teacher candidate, sits in the back of the room preparing materials for his lesson each morning while students enter the room, joke, misbehave, and talk to each other. He doesn't take the initiative to redirect students and waits to be told by his supervising practitioner to engage with the students. As soon as he completes the task of helping students to get settled, he returns to his spot at the back of the class. Marie, the supervising practitioner, decides to address the issue with the teacher candidate and gives him specific feedback, but was careful not to criticize him. During the meeting, she asked Tom to reflect on his teaching and identify areas where he needs support. Tom thought things were going well and he felt he didn't need support. Marie explained her concerns regarding his lack of initiative in interacting with the students. Tom was surprised at the feedback but seemed to understand the issue. However, in the following days, he did not change his behavior, and he continued to require explicit instructions on multiple occasions to engage with the students from his supervising practitioner. Question: how would you rate Tom on number 4? Reflects on his or her work, behavior, and/or practice. Let's take a look at the rubric language. Clearly, Tom is having difficulty recognizing his personal weakness, and in this example, he responded appropriately to suggestions, yet he did not use it to adjust his work, behavior, and/or practice and required additional reminders from the supervising practitioner. Because he often needs to adjust work, behavior, and/or practice, which is an element in the unsatisfactory level, Tom would be rated a 1 unsatisfactory on the candidate disposition assessment for number 4. The School of Education believes that being ethical is an integral component to teaching. We expect our candidates to demonstrate the ability to foster trust by protecting confidentiality of others, to demonstrate sound moral character and make sound judgments, to be truthful, honest, sincere, and is fair and just in all situations with all students, shows integrity and takes pride in their work, and gives credit where credit is due. Now let's take a look at the rubrics language for the 5th indicator on ethical practice. For a candidate to score 3, proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria. Demonstrate sound judgment reflecting integrity, honesty, fairness, respect for intellectual property of others, and trustworthiness, and protects the confidentiality of others. To score 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary criteria, which is the candidate always demonstrates ethical behavior and serves as a role model or mentor for others, deals directly with the consequences of actions and events, and works proactively to pursue positive outcomes. Now let's take a look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's ethical skills, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3, proficient, in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the criteria. A score of 2, needs improvement, includes the phrases on occasion and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is on occasion, judgment reflects integrity, honesty, fairness, respect for intellectual property of others, and/or trustworthiness is questionable, needs to better protect confidentiality of others. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language: lacks and needs to. The criteria for a score of 1 is lacks judgment reflecting integrity, honesty, fairness, respect for intellectual property of others, and/or trustworthiness, needs to protect the confidentiality of others. When scoring candidates on their ethics, consider the level he or she demonstrates sound judgment and maintains confidentiality. At Fitchburg State University, we expect our candidates to demonstrate clear understanding of the legal and moral obligations of the profession, mandated reporting responsibilities, and organizational rules and procedures. We expect candidates to exhibit the qualities of caring and ethical behavior, including the demonstration of high-quality interactions with students that reflect not only their knowledge, but also their compassion, caring, humanity, and spirit. Candidates should demonstrate empathy, adaptability, open-minded behavior that reflects their concern for the welfare of their students and their passion for teaching and learning. Moreover, candidates should take a leadership role in modeling high standards and ethical behavior in the classroom, in the school, and in the community. They must maintain confidentiality and professionalism at all times and understand the national and state code of ethics. The Fitchburg State University candidate is entering a large, diverse world. Therefore, we expect them to understand mandated reported responsibilities as well as to understand the school's culture, rules, and procedures. For a candidate to score a 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria. They are aware of state and national laws and codes of ethics, mandated reported responsibilities, and organizational rules and procedure, and also applies this knowledge as appropriate. To score 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary criteria. The candidate serves as a resource for others in the profession, shares the roles and responsibilities that apply to teachers within district guidelines, including rules for safety and emergency procedures. Now let's look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's knowledge of the legal and moral obligations of the profession, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of proficient in the previous slide indicated that the candidate was meeting the score of 3 proficient criteria. A score of 2 for needs improvement includes the phrases needs to. The performance criteria for a 2 is needs to be aware of state and national laws and code of ethics, mandated reporting responsibilities, and/or organizational rules and procedures. Needs to apply this knowledge as appropriate. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language: unaware. The criteria for a score of 1 is they are unaware of state and national laws and codes of ethics, mandated reporting responsibilities, and/or organizational rules and procedures, or are aware of the knowledge but unaware of how to apply it. At Fitchburg State, our candidates expect ethics, gender, and cultural diversity within their classrooms. Our candidates are prepared to work with a diverse population of students and are respectful to individual learning needs by employing a variety of teaching methods to ensure that all students have access to curricular content. Candidates must effectively meet all students' needs and create a classroom environment that is free from inadvertent or overt discrimination. We expect our candidates to practice and promote equity in the classroom and in interactions with others. Our candidates recognize those differences by creating a culture of inclusion, respect, and acceptance among students in the greater school community. For a candidate to score 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria: interact equitably with others, consistently use practices to create and maintain an environment in which diverse backgrounds, identities, and perspectives of others are respected. To meet a 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary criteria, which is the candidate always demonstrates consideration for people in multiple perspectives, shows warmth, caring, respect, and fairness for all students, and builds strong relationships, looks for and creates opportunities to respond to and enhance cross-cultural understandings, invites and integrates students' individual differences into the classroom environment. Now let's take a look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's respect for human diversity, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3 proficient in the previous slide indicated that the candidate was meeting the 3 criteria. A score of 2 needs improvement includes the phrases on occasion and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is, on occasion, equitable interactions with others are questioned, needs to consistently use practices to create and maintain an environment in which the diverse backgrounds, identities, and perspective of others are respected. A score of 1 uses the following language: lack and limited. The criteria for a score of 1 is interactions with others lack equity, practices to create and maintain an environment in which the diverse backgrounds, identities, and perspectives of others are respected, are limited. When scoring candidates on their respect for human diversity, consider the level he or she interacts equitably with others and uses practices to create and maintain an inclusive environment. A Missouri elementary school is investigating an in-class assignment given to 5th grade students that asked them to consider the trade value of slaves on their hypothetical plantation and what price to assign those slaves. The example given to students reads, "You own a plantation or farm and therefore need more workers. You begin to get involved in the slave trade industry and have slaves work on your farm. Your product to trade is slaves. Set your price for a slave. These could be worth a lot. You may trade for any items you like." Obviously, this is an inappropriate example and would be an extreme example of an unsatisfactory score on indicator 7 because interactions with others lacks equity. Practices to create and maintain an environment in which the diverse backgrounds, identities, and perspectives of others are respected are limited. At Fitchburg State, our candidates understand that a lack of inclusiveness in the classroom can lead to students feeling isolated. Here is a culturally insensitive example. This story was taken from the Riverfront Times, which is a weekly newspaper in St. Louis, Missouri. A Missouri elementary school is investigating an in-class assignment given to 5th grade students that asked them to consider the trade value of slaves on their hypothetical plantation and what price to assign those slaves. The question reads, "You own a plantation or farm and therefore need more workers. You begin to get involved in the slave trade industry and have slaves work on your farm. Your product to trade is slaves. Set your price for a slave. These could be worth a lot. You may trade for any item you like." Obviously, this is inappropriate and would be an extreme example of an unsatisfactory score on indicator 7 because interactions with others lack equity. Practices to create and maintain an environment in which the diverse backgrounds, identities, and perspective of others are respected are limited. At Fitchburg State, our candidates understand that a lack of inclusiveness in the classroom can lead to students feeling isolated, can lead to increased stress levels for minority or otherwise marginalized students, and cause them to be victims of bullying at higher rates. Therefore, we expect our candidates to demonstrate respect for student differences and the belief that all students can learn. We expect our candidates to not only accommodate individual learning needs, but to also use appropriate practices that address the social and emotional needs of students. Finally, our candidates are expected to persist with students to help them learn. For a candidate to score a 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria: sets high expectations for each student, uses appropriate practices and strategies to accommodate students in learning and social emotional needs. To score 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary criteria. The candidate demonstrates without exception the belief that all students can learn, sets high expectations for students, and conveys an expectation of high levels of student effort, Persist with students to try to help them learn. Takes student interest into account. Now let's take a look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's best for students' differences, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3 proficient previously indicated that the candidate meets the 2 criteria. A score of 2 needing improvement includes the phrases on occasion needs to and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is on occasion needs to set high expectations for each student. Needs to consistently use appropriate practices and strategies to accommodate differences in learning and or social emotional needs. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language: often needs to and often lacks. The criteria for a score of 1 is often needs to set high expectations for each student, often lacks the use of appropriate practices and strategies to accommodate differences in learning and or social emotional needs. Let's watch a short video on encouraging students to persist through challenges. This video shows evidence of a teacher scoring proficient on setting high expectations for students and using appropriate practices and strategies to accommodate differences in learning and social emotional needs.
Get smarter. Growth mindset means believing that your brain has the capacity to grow. My job as a teacher is to teach my students strategies to help them grow their brains. Oh my goodness, way to be so precise and clear. Are we taking like 2, 1, or 8? In life, students are going to need to pursue problems, and they're going to need to be developed as problem solvers who know how to encounter a challenge and work through it to persevere to solve it.
How many star stickers did Sally have left?
Scholars, remind our brains how we solve this. Turn and tell your partner, I solved this problem by... In math, in particular, I'm much more concerned with their ability to make sense of a problem and persevere in solving it than I am in them getting the right answer. How many more do I need to take away? 8. How do you know?
Because it said right there, 248.
Today's lesson was a number sense lesson, and students were tasked with subtracting 3-digit numbers in story problems. Mathematicians, that problem felt especially challenging, didn't it?
Yes.
One thing you saw in my class today was my students encounter a challenging problem and really embrace it and get excited. What felt challenging about that, Brenda?
I got stuck on the 30 part.
I almost normalize that everyone's going to feel stuck, everyone's going to feel challenged by it, so that they can get excited and think about the strategies they can implement to tackle the problem. What can you do when you're feeling stuck?
Can I have some help? I'm feeling stuck about taking away 2 more tenths.
Way to be specific, Brenda, about how to get help. Justify.
I took a jump of 2.
Teacher candidates are expected to follow the schedule of the placement school and their supervising practitioners, making themselves available before and after school for mentoring, meetings, and activities as appropriate. Teacher candidates must fulfill all course and or field experience responsibilities. In addition, they must be consistently punctual and present. We encourage teacher candidates to avoid absences from the practicum. Inappropriate or excessive absences must be made up and could jeopardize their standing in the program. Furthermore, absences may not exceed 3 excused absences per 8-week placement and more than 5 excused absences over the entire semester. Supervising practitioners and program supervisors must be notified no later than the morning of the absence. School closures due to snow and other natural occurrences may need to be made up. It is important for teacher candidates to follow these rules as their license is dependent on the number of hours set by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. For a candidate to score a 3 proficient, he or she must meet 2 criteria: fulfills all course and or field experience responsibilities, and is consistently punctual and present. To score a 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary category. The candidate shares responsibilities with others to complete assigned tasks as appropriate, may fulfill obligations early, notifies appropriate people of unavoided tardiness and absences. Now let's take a look at needs improvement and unsatisfactory. When assessing the candidate's obligations, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3 in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the 2 criteria. A score of 2 needs improvement includes the phrases on occasion and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is on occasion, coursework and/or field experience responsibilities are not met and/or are late. Needs to be more engaged in coursework and/or fieldwork. A score of 1 unsatisfactory uses the following language, not met and needs to be. The criteria for a score of 1 is coursework and/or field experience responsibilities are not met on a regular basis and/or are late. Needs to be engaged in coursework and/or field experiences. When scoring candidates on their obligations, consider the level he or she fulfills responsibilities and is punctual and present. Teacher enthusiasm is generally recognized as one of the most essential and desirable qualities and characteristics of effective teachers. An enthusiastic teacher often spices the class with excitement, enjoyment, and anticipation, engages students to participate, and stimulates them to explore. Thus, teacher enthusiasm sparks the curiosity of students and jumpstarts their motivation to learn. Teacher enthusiasm can lead to better student performance and improved classroom behavior. At Fitchburg State, we believe that a teacher's appearance plays a role in conveying professionalism. A male teacher should wear dress pants and a polo shirt or a button-down shirt, adding a tie or jacket for special occasions. Female teachers should wear appropriate clothing for the classroom, avoiding short skirts and revealing tops. When it comes to interacting with students, teacher candidates must understand there is a fine line between being a caring adult and being a friend. Professional teachers do not let their desire to be liked by students get in the way of enforcing classroom and school rules. They do not show favoritism or discriminate against students. A dedicated teacher believes all students have the ability to learn and succeed. We expect our teacher candidates to follow the lead of the supervising practitioner. For a candidate to score 3 proficient, he or she must meet 3 criteria. Consistently demonstrates professional demeanor, conduct, and appearance, appropriately and promptly responds to communications, shows enthusiasm for teaching. To score 4, exemplary, the candidate must meet the criteria in the proficient category and also meet the exemplary criteria. The candidate models professional demeanor, conduct, and appearance for others, as well as passionate commitment to and understanding of teaching as lifelong learning. Enthusiastically and constructively responds to student ideas and ideas of others. Now let's take a look at the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories. When assessing the candidate's professional demeanor and passion for teaching, the needs improvement and unsatisfactory categories have distinct parallel language. A score of 3, proficient, in the previous slide indicated that the candidate is meeting the 3 criteria. A score of 2, needs improvement, includes the phrases on occasion needs to and needs to. The performance criteria for a score of 2 is on occasion needs to demonstrate more professional demeanor, conduct, and/or appearance, needs to appropriately and promptly respond to communications on a more consistent basis, needs to show more enthusiasm for teaching. A score of 1, unsatisfactory, uses the following language, often lacks, limited, and needs to. The criteria for a score of 1 is often lacks demonstration of professional demeanor, conduct, and/or appearance. Appropriate and prompt responses to communications are limited, and needs to show enthusiasm for teaching. This concludes our training on assessing candidate dispositions. For more information on our licensure programs at Fitchburg State, please click on the following link shown here. Please go back to the module and click on the link to complete the quiz. Thank you.